The storm rolls in like a verdict over Gull Harbour, Maine, flattening the ocean into sheets of steel and shouldering the sky down to the waterline, and Ellie Hart arrives with a duffel bag, a restoration contract, and the one promise she swore she would never break again. She will not look back at the life she left here, or the boy who became the man who let her go without a word. Hit like, subscribe, and comment the city and state you are watching from. The wind claws at the cliff road as if it remembers her name. The lighthouse at Breaker Point throws a tired beam that trembles and blinks, and the town, with its porches and lobster traps and long memory, lifts its head to watch what it has been waiting for since the summer everything shattered. Noah Barrett is already inside the lantern room with a wrench in one hand and a guilt that never learned to sleep, and when he lifts his eyes to the glass, he sees a figure on the path silhouetted by lightning, hair whipped, jaw set, moving straight toward the door he once closed on her future. The radio crackles with the coastal warning that seals their fate until the storm passes, a voice from Harbor Patrol ordering all non-essential traffic off the water and all residents off the bluffs, and Ellie steps into the warm, salt smell of the tower with rain on her lashes and years in her throat. There is the ledger with their names on opposite pages from another lifetime. There is the rusted key that used to hang on a nail in his father's shed. There is the photograph tucked under glass of two kids at 17 with sunburned noses and a horizon that looked like it would never end. The door bolts behind them as the first hard band of rain hits the windows, and the lighthouse goes a little darker, as if the past just reached up from the deep and put two fingers on the light. Welcome back to Gull Harbour, a coastal town that remembers everything and forgives slowly, where one storm will lock two people in a tower with their unfinished sentences, where the rules everyone lives by are simple and brutal. Keep the light on, keep your head down, keep your heart quiet. Hit like, subscribe, and comment the city and state you are watching from. Ellie Hart did not plan to stay any longer than the restoration demanded, but the state contract signed in clean ink has a clause about emergency duty at Breaker Point, and duty is what brings her up the spiral staircase with a toolkit and a steady breath, even though her chest is a house on fire. Noah Barrett did not plan to see her again under this roof, yet the generator is coughing, the lens needs cleaning, the ledger lies open to a page that carries the last date before they broke, and every small, ordinary task becomes a test of how long a person can stand in the room with the truth and refuse to touch it. Outside, the town leans on its porch rails and talks into kitchen phones while rain stings the harbor like thrown gravel. And inside, the lighthouse collects their voices the way it always has, turning love and anger and apology into echoes that rise through iron and glass. There are 5 objects here that will demand an answer before the dawn. A key that opens more than a door, a photograph that refuses to fade, a letter that never arrived, a cracked hand lantern that only shines when someone believes it will, and a ledger that lists who kept the watch and who ran. The storm will press them flat against everything they did not say. The town will listen without meaning to, and somewhere between the lowest gust and the darkest hour, 2 people will learn whether second chances are found or made. The storm had not yet swallowed the horizon when Ellie felt the first shiver of regret crawl under her coat, the kind that did not come from cold, but from memory, and she tightened her grip on the metal railing that bordered the cliff path, as if that alone could keep the past from dragging her backward. Gull Harbour looked almost exactly the same as it had the summer she left, the same clapboard houses with peeling white paint and blue shutters, the same bait shop that smelled like brine and old rope, the same gulls circling low over the pier as if they had signed a contract to never abandon this place. Only she had changed, and the town seemed to sense it, its windows turned outward like watchful eyes, its silence full of unsentenced questions. She did not belong to this place anymore, but the state documents in her bag said otherwise, stamped and notarized and binding in a way that heartbreak never had the courtesy to be. She was here to restore the lens of Breaker Point Lighthouse, nothing more, nothing less, and she told herself she could do that without reopening the part of her that had never really healed. The wooden steps up to the tower door were slick with salt and rain. She wiped her boots before climbing, a habit from childhood she could not unlearn, and when she reached the threshold she paused, listening to the storm's slow applause against the cliffs. The door stood unlocked, and that detail alone made her pulse quicken. Noah used to lock everything twice. Not because he feared thieves, nobody stole from anybody in Gull Harbour, not unless you counted gossip, but because he believed in keeping what mattered safe. She pushed the door open. The smell met her first. Warm oil from the lantern mechanics, salt damp rope, cedar shelves, and underneath it all, something faintly familiar, like the ghost of a summer night. Sea sweat and cheap lemonade, and somebody saying, "Stay, please stay." She stepped inside anyway. Noah heard her boots before he heard her voice, the steady thud of wet soles against old bricks spiraling upward through the tower, and for a moment he thought the sound belonged to a memory he had refused to bury. But then it came again, louder, real enough to pull him out of the maintenance log where he had been writing the same sentence 3 times without finishing it. He straightened, wiped his hands on a rag, and turned toward the iron stairs just as she emerged on the final step, rain still threading down her hair in dark rivulets. The sight hit him with the force of a wave he'd been bracing for years, and yet the impact still stole his breath. Ellie Hart. Older, sharper, carrying distance in her posture the way other people carried jewelry. She did not speak first. Neither did he. The silence between them felt like someone had slapped a sheet of glass into the room, transparent, unbreakable, forcing them to look through it instead of at each other. Ellie set her bag down, careful, deliberate, the gesture of someone who knows anything too sudden might shatter what is left. Noah tried to find a sentence that didn't sound like an apology disguised as small talk, but the radio above them sputtered to life before he could try. A voice from Harbor Patrol cut through the tower. "Breaker point. You're officially under lockdown. Repeat. All coastal access closed until storm clearance, estimated 72 hours. Anyone on site stays on site." The radio clicked off. Ellie closed her eyes. Noah exhaled once, slow, as if he'd been expecting this all along. 72 hours, locked in the same lighthouse, with the one person they never learned how to leave cleanly. Ellie looked at the spiral stairs, at the rain hammering the glass panes, at the ledger on the desk still open to the last entry that bore both their names, hers in looping teenage cursive, his in the blocky handwriting of a boy pretending to be a man. Time had not erased it. Time had only waited. "I'm not here for you," she finally said. "I know," Noah answered. He did not add, "I never stopped being here for you." The generator coughed once, then twice, then died. The main light dimmed, flickered, and went out, leaving only the faint glow of a storm lantern on the shelf. Ellie inhaled sharply, muscle memory pulling her toward the mechanical panel. Noah beat her to it, already reaching for the crank handle. "Still think you can fix everything you break?" she asked. "Still think everything broke because of me?" he replied. There it was. The first crack, the first shard of truth sliding between them like a blade that remembered its work. The storm roared. The tower shuddered. Somewhere in the dark, a section of roof tile snapped loose, crashed down the outer wall, and was swallowed by the wind. The past had found them, and it was not done speaking. The emergency lantern cast a circle of honey-colored light around the lower room, just enough to illuminate the old registry book lying open on the desk. Ellie picked it up, brushing dust from the cover. The leather binding had weathered but held firm, unlike the people who once signed its pages. Noah watched her hands as she turned to the last summer they worked the lighthouse together, 17 and invincible, convinced the world would shape itself around their plans. She found the page, her name above his, and paused at the blank space beneath them. No signatures after. No one else had taken their shift the night it all detonated. "You never closed the log," she said quietly. "You never let me," he answered. She looked up, eyes flaring. "You walked away. I stepped back. You disappeared. I protected you. You destroyed us." The lantern guttered, its flame shivering as the wind shook the tower again. Noah steadied it, but Ellie stepped back as if the conversation itself had teeth. He could explain everything right here. The threat, the sacrifice, the truth he carried like a stone in his ribs. But the words sat heavy in his mouth. Unfinished letters, unmailed confessions, all the things he had told himself he would say if the universe ever forced them back into the same room again. And now that it had, he was afraid. Ellie knelt beside the supply trunk, sorting tools for the restoration job the state expected her to complete. New bolts, cleaning agent, replacement glass strips, and her hand froze on an object wrapped in waxed cloth. She unrolled it slowly. A small battered hand lantern with its lens cracked, same one Noah used the night they first kissed under the beacon flare, the night he promised he would never be the one to let go first. He had let go anyway. She set the lantern down, with a gentleness that betrayed how badly she wanted to throw it against the wall. "Why is this still here?" she asked. "Because I couldn't fix it," Noah said. He didn't mean the lantern. Ellie swallowed, jaw tight. She opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again, but nothing came out except a breath that trembled like a verdict she wasn't ready to deliver. Then the radio crackled again, not with a warning, but with something worse. Town voices, unfiltered, listening. Is she really back? Thought she'd never show her face again. You know why he left her, right? Storm's just payback. The coastal frequency had picked up an open channel line, broadcasting the gossip straight into the lighthouse. Ellie looked at Noah. Noah looked at Ellie. The world outside had just been admitted into the room, and it had teeth of its own. The voices bled through the static like ghosts with opinions, each one a reminder that Gull Harbor never forgot. It only waited for the right storm to shake loose its memories. Ellie reached for the radio dial, but Noah caught her wrist. Not rough, just enough to stop her. His touch lasted 1 second too long, a muscle-deep echo of every summer night they thought they were unbreakable. "Let it play," he said. "Why? So we can hear them rewrite our story in real time." "No," he said, eyes steady. "So you finally know what I stayed behind and carried." She pulled her hand free. "You could have told me. You were already bleeding. I wasn't going to hand you the knife too." The radio spat again. "She thinks she's better now? Heard she left without saying goodbye. Maybe she deserved it. He was always trouble. They ruined each other." Ellie turned away, gripping the edge of the desk until her knuckles burned. Every word felt like gravel against bone, but it wasn't the town's gossip that hurt. It was the fact that Noah didn't flinch, as if he had heard it all before, as if it had become a kind of weather he learned to live under. She faced him. "You let them say all this about us. I couldn't stop them. You didn't try. I was 20, he said, and the years in his voice made him sound older than the storm outside. "All I knew how to do was break things quietly and hope nobody noticed." Silence took the room again, thick as the humidity before lightning. Ellie set the ledger down and walked toward the narrow window slit. The ocean below was no longer an ocean, just a heaving sheet of black steel where waves and horizon had collapsed into one. "You ever think about what would have happened if we stayed together?" she asked, not looking at him. "Every day," Noah answered, not hiding it. And the answer changes depending on whether I'm angry, guilty, or sober." She almost smiled, almost, but her mouth couldn't hold the shape. The first gust hit the tower with enough force to rattle the stair rails. Noah moved with instinct, checking anchor points, tightening the crossbars, counting supplies. Ellie climbed with him floor by floor, not because she needed to, but because she remembered the routine. When the storm comes, you don't separate. You move like a single plan wearing two bodies. They reached the lantern room just as lightning cracked a seam through the sky, lighting up the glass. The beacon lens, famous in 3 counties and older than both of them combined, stood dim and unresponsive. Noah exhaled. "She won't hold through the night without full power." Ellie crouched to inspect the mechanism. "You didn't replace the bearing. Didn't have the budget. You always found a way before." "Yeah," he said. Then life started charging interest. She glanced at him, and something in her eyes softened. Not forgiveness, not even sympathy, just recognition of fatigue in someone who wasn't supposed to run out of strength. Thunder rolled, a long, belly-deep growl. They worked in silence for a while. Oiled gears reset the crank, rewired a fuse. Their hands collided once and neither pulled away fast enough. Years of distance and 1 second of skin contact. Enough to hurt, enough to not be enough. Then, halfway through tightening the belt drive, Ellie found it. A folded scrap of paper wedged behind the base housing. Yellowed, creased, unopened. She slid it free. Her name on the front. Ink smudged by time. Noah froze. "That's," he started. "A letter," she said. "From you." And the world inside the lighthouse stopped breathing. Noah didn't move, didn't blink, didn't even reach for it. The letter sat in her palm like it had waited not hours, not months, but whole seasons for her fingers to touch it. "You were never supposed to see it," he said quietly. "Then why write it?" "Because I was too much of a coward to tell you the truth, and too much of a coward not to." She held his gaze. "What's in it?" "Everything I hated myself for. Everything I thought would save you." "Save me from what?" "If you open it," he said, voice threading low, "you don't get to go back to not knowing. Ellie looked down at the letter, her name in his handwriting, the past in a paper coffin. Outside, the storm hit the lighthouse with full force, shaking the glass panes like fists against a locked door. Inside, the truth waited, folded, trembling, still alive. The lantern flickered again. The room dimmed until their faces were shadows outlined by lightning. Noah stepped back, giving her space, as if the letter itself drew a border he wasn't worthy to cross. "Why didn't you just mail it?" she asked. "I tried," he said. "I drove to the post office 4 times, walked inside twice, wrote your address 3 different ways, but every time I got to the counter I thought, she deserves a clean ending, not a bleeding one." "You didn't give me an ending," she said. "You gave me a silence." He closed his eyes. "I know." She turned away, the letter still unopened. And that was the worst part. She didn't tear it, didn't hand it back, didn't fling it against the wall. She kept it, carefully, like something she still wanted answers from. Downstairs, the radio sputtered one final time before it died with the generator. "Storm's getting worse. Hope they're not alone up there. Those two, trust me, alone is exactly the problem." Then static, then nothing. The entire coast went dark. Only the lighthouse remained. 1 tower, 2 people, and a letter that could burn everything down or light everything up again. They descended in the dark with the hand lantern between them, its cracked lens throwing a torn ribbon of light that jittered across brick and iron. The air inside the tower felt charged, as if the storm had seeped through the mortar and taken a seat on the stairs. Ellie kept the letter cupped in her palm as if the pages might try to fly back into hiding. Halfway down, she stopped before the wall where someone had tacked up a corkboard of notices, volunteer rosters, a faded weather map, and tucked behind a pushpin, a photograph she had not seen in years. 2 kids on the breakwater, July sun in their eyes, her hair in a bandana, his mouth open mid-laugh, a boat horn blasting behind them. She touched the edge with 1 finger. The paper had curled at the corners, as if even photographs learned to brace. "You kept this up," she said. "Some things do their own keeping," Noah answered. "Like guilt. Like hope," he said, and she let the word stand between them without kicking it away. They reached the workroom and took stock. Cans of oil, spare wicks, a cracked mug that said Harbor Day. The emergency kit still sealed. Noah lit 2 candles and set them in saucers, and the poor light softened the room into a place that might have belonged to strangers who were kinder to each other than the truth allowed. Ellie laid the letter beside the ledger, the old and the older, the unfinished and the official, and for a long moment she did nothing except listen to the wind draw a long breath around the tower and let it out slow. "You said there are 5 things in this place that will demand answers," she said. "Here are 2. The key," Noah said, reaching for the nail where it used to hang. He found it in a tin on the shelf, old brass gone dull. He set it beside the letter and the ledger. 3. Ellie lifted the hand lantern to the table. 4. Noah nodded toward the photograph on the wall. 5. Ellie looked at the little constellation they had made, a map of before and after, points of light and weight. What nobody tells you about second chances is that they are heavy. You have to be strong to lift one without dropping it. Rain needled the windows until the glass sang. The tower swayed at the top of each gust and settled again with the creak of old bones. Noah checked the radio one last time, took the crank in his hand, and listened to the dead air prove that the world outside had been temporarily erased. It was only them and the weather and what they had done to each other. "You hungry?" he asked, not quite a question. He pulled down a tin of soup, the brand that had fed 100 storm watches, and the steady work of opening and heating it cleared some of the smoke from the air. Ellie did not refuse. They ate standing at the table, 2 spoons, steam on their faces, the kind of simple heat that makes people remember they have bodies and that their bodies have hearts. "When your father got sick," Ellie said, eyes on the rising steam, "I left messages." "I know," he said. "You did not call back." "I know," he said again. "Did he hate me?" she asked. "No," Noah said, and the word came out too fast to be a lie. "He wanted me to do right by you, and you thought that meant leaving me to bleed on my own. I thought it meant choosing the pain I would carry instead of the pain you would carry, and you never considered carrying it together." He looked down at his spoon. "I did not know how." The honesty landed without triumph. There are confessions that change a room, and confessions that only make the room feel honest. This felt like the second kind. She set the spoon aside, wiped her mouth with the back of her hand, and returned to the letter as if it were a compass she had to keep checking even if the needle spun. She unfolded the first crease. The paper made a small sound, like a wing opening. She did not read. Not yet. She only looked at the ink and the shape of his writing, and the way time had smudged certain strokes, as if a thumb had pressed there too often. She folded it back again and set it under the ledger, as if giving the letter weight would keep the past from blowing through the room and scattering their careful work. Noah watched the movement and did not argue. He reached for a set of tools, slid a wrench into his back pocket, and tested the door to the generator shed. The latch moved a finger's width, then jammed, swollen by the storm. He braced a shoulder against it, shoved once, and it gave with a brittle squeal. Cold air rushed in, flinging rain against his face with rude hands. "Do not," Ellie's voice threaded across the wind. "You will get thrown off the platform. If the light dies and someone misses the rocks, I do not get to say I stayed inside because I was afraid of getting wet," he said, and the old stubbornness stood up in his posture, the kind that would not let him leave a duty half done, the kind that had once made her fall in love and then made her furious. "You think I came back to watch you disappear," she said. "I think you came back to do the job you said you would do," he said, "so let me do mine." She hated the way the argument was shaped like them. She hated how easily they fell into the old puzzle where the pieces cut new skin along the same lines as before. She moved to his side anyway, hand on the heavy door, shoulder to shoulder, pressed against the storm's arm. Together they shoved it wide. Wind took the breath from their mouths. The platform glistened, rain slamming sideways, salt sharp enough to taste with the tongue. The generator shed crouched against the tower like a stubborn dog, and Noah ducked inside while Ellie braced the door with both hands. He moved through the cramped space by memory, cursing softly when his shin found the toolbox and his elbow found a pipe. The panel cover stuck. He pried. It came free, slapping his wrist hard enough to bring heat to his skin. "You all right?" Ellie called. "Fine," he said. "Stupid, but fine." He checked the fuel line, the plugs, the grounding clamp, the tired belt that had been due for replacing 2 winters ago. Storms do not care about your budget. He loosened a bolt, tightened another, reset the starter. The little engine coughed and rattled, and then did nothing at all. He tried again. Nothing. He felt the old anger rise, not at the machine, not at the weather, but at the way need always comes when you are least prepared to meet it. "Try again," Ellie said, and the quiet authority in her voice made him do it without deciding. This time the engine caught, a stubborn, ugly sound that smoothed into a workable rumble. The platform vibrated. The tower hummed. Somewhere above, a low glow stirred. "Good," Ellie said, relief sliding into her shoulders. "Come back in." He wiped his hands on his shirt and turned, and that was when the wind shifted. The door jumped against her grip with a violence that felt personal. Her boots slipped half an inch. The weight threw her forward, shoulder torquing hard. He lunged and caught the edge with his palm, fingers crushing against wet metal, and together they muscled it shut. When it latched, they stayed there, breath to breath, close enough that the heat off his skin cut through the cold as if their bodies had never learned the word distance. "Thank you," she said. "Do not," he said. "That is not the debt I want settled." Back inside, the lighthouse felt steadier. The glow returned, pale but alive, brushing the walls with a suggestion of safety. The hand lantern on the table looked less like a relic now, and more like a patient waiting for a surgeon to take it seriously. Ellie reached for it, set the cracked lens in the cradle of her palm, and examined the break. It was not hopeless. It only looked like it from far away. "You remember the night we found that fog bank, and you swore the ocean had simply decided to move closer to us," she said. "You swore back," he said, a smile ghosting his mouth for the first time, "that anyone who thought water did not have a will had never tried to make tea on a boat." She shook her head, and the nearly laugh did not make it to her throat. "We were ridiculous. We were alive," he said. "And then you wrote a letter you never sent," she said, setting the lantern down. "And then I wrote a letter I never sent," he agreed, not dodging. She pulled a breath in slow and let it out. "I will read it," she said, "but not because you want forgiveness. Not because the town is listening. Not because the storm makes us feel like the past is the only room we can stand in. I will read it because I am done living with a ghost that knows more about my life than I do." He nodded once, relief and fear braided tight. "Not yet," she said, "but tonight." They made up 2 cots in the lower room when the wind finally shifted from rage to endurance. Ellie laid her coat over the foot of the mattress and rolled the stiffness from her neck. Noah checked the windows, tested the door, and stood by the ledger, as if drawn to the place where their names had been anchored for too long. "You want me to close it?" he asked, hand on the pen. "Leave it open," she said. "We are not finished." "I do not know what that means," he said. "It means we will not pretend tonight did not happen." He set the pen down. The candles had burned low, wax puddling like small failures on white saucers. He pinched the wicks out, one and then the other, and in the sudden dark, the lighthouse sent its tired beam across the room, a slow sweep that painted the letter each time it passed. "I can sleep upstairs," he said, almost formal. "You will sleep here," she said. "If the generator hiccups, I do not trust you to hear it alone." He almost argued. Did not. Lay down. And the sharpness of that small obedience eased something in her she had not realized was clenched. Night took on the strange rhythm that storms bring, a mathematics of gusts and lulls that the body learns the way it learns a lover's breathing. Ellie counted the cycles without meaning to. She stared at the ceiling. She blinked into the dark until the dark blinked back like an animal willing to be seen. Somewhere in the hour that clocks call ugly, the tower groaned in a way that made them both sit up at once. "Just the wind shifting," Noah said, but he was not certain, and she heard it. "Stay," she said, and he did, and the word did something inside his chest that no engine had fixed in years. She rose and crossed to the table. The letter waited. She touched the fold with the tip of one finger. The paper gave. She lifted it. She did not go back to bed. Noah watched her from his pillow propped on one elbow, the dim beam cutting across his face every few seconds, turning him from shadow to man and back to shadow again. "Do you want me to look away?" he asked. "I want you to be here," she said. She opened the letter. There are truths that arrive like knives and truths that arrive like keys. The first line was neither. It was a door. She stepped through it, eyes moving left to right in a silence that grew heavier with each sentence. Noah did not move. He did not speak. He did not do anything except exist, which for once felt like the bravest possible choice. The letter told a story that did not match the one the town had sold to itself. It used names she recognized and decisions she did not. It drew a map of fear that had not been hers to carry and a set of threats that had parked themselves inside Noah's life and refused to back out. It was not perfect. It did not absolve. It did not beg. It only told the truth as a boy understood it at the moment he believed love and damage were the same rope. Ellie finished the last line and closed her eyes. The storm breathed. The tower breathed. Noah did not. She folded the paper slowly and set it on the ledger. For a long time she did not trust her voice to hold. When she finally spoke, it was not a verdict. "You chose for both of us," she said, "but you bled for it." "Yes," he said. "And you should have let me choose," she said. "Yes," he said again. She nodded in the dark, a movement no one but him would have seen. Something old set down its bags in the corner and stopped pacing. Not forgiveness, not yet, but the room had changed shape. Ellie reached for the key. It was heavier than it looked, the kind of weight that could open a door or break a window depending on how it was used. She turned it in her hand, then held it out across the table. Noah stared at the brass as if it were a language he needed a minute to remember. He closed his fingers around it, and when he lifted his eyes, whatever had been braced against loss inside him stepped slightly to the side. "This is not surrender," she said. "I know," he said. "This is me saying if this tower is going to hold, we hold it together." He closed his hand tighter. "Then we begin again," he said. "We do not begin," she said. "We continue. Beginning is for people who did not live what we lived." He almost smiled. "Continue then," he said, and the word fit. They lay back down. The lighthouse turned its long, tired circle across the room, touching the ledger, the letter, the photograph on the wall, the hand lantern, and finally the key in Noah's fist. The storm's voice lowered. The tower eased its shoulders. Somewhere out at sea, a horn called once, and then went quiet, as if gratitude could be blown into the night and carried on waves. Ellie closed her eyes. Sleep did not come quickly, but it came, and when it reached her, it arrived without knives. Before she slid under, she felt the table of objects in her mind settle into a new pattern, not solved, not safe, but no longer a pile of broken things, pieces set out for repair, work that two people could learn again. When the beam passed over her face one last time, she did not flinch. She let the light go and kept the warmth. Outside, the ocean flexed. Inside, the truth held, and the night, at last, began to move. Night thinned but did not lift. A second skin stretched over the tower so tightly that every sound had edges. Ellie woke to the soft grind of gears above and the lull between gusts when the storm seemed to hold its breath and listen. The letter lay where she had left it on the ledger, its fold neat again, its truth refusing to become smaller in the dark. Noah's cot was a shadow across from hers. He was on his back, one arm over his eyes, the other still closed around the lighthouse key, as if it were a promise his body had agreed to keep while he slept. She sat up slowly, joints noticing the night. The floor under her boots was cool and a little damp, the kind of chill that comes from stone, learning the weather by heart. She crossed to the table, checked the lantern's wick, and drew it a fraction higher until the room gathered itself around the light. Outside, the rain softened to a steady hiss, and the lighthouse beam made its slow path across the walls, touching the photograph, the hand lantern, the ledger, the letter, the key. It felt like a benediction or a challenge, depending on where her eyes landed. Noah woke the way men do when sleep is an agreement rather than a right. Breath deeper once, then measure steady again, hand closing tighter on the key before he remembered he did not need to hold the world shut anymore. He turned his head and found Ellie by the table, hair pulled into a rough knot that made her look older and younger at once. She had always been like that here, time folding around her, the girl and the woman visible at the same moment if you knew where to look. He sat up, the quilt sliding off his shoulders, and the lighthouse's swing made a pale band across his collarbone that looked like someone had pressed a horizon onto his skin. "You slept," she said. "Enough to remember how," he answered. "Good." She touched the letter with two fingers, not to move it, only to acknowledge it. "The storm is still our jailer," she said, "but the guard is yawning." He almost smiled. "At least we know the rules," he said. "Stay inside. Keep the light. Tell the truth when it is safer to lie." "Safer for whom?" she asked. He did not pretend not to understand. "For the parts of me that liked being the only one who knew the whole map," he said. "Those parts do not get a vote anymore." They checked the tower before Dawn made any serious promises. The stairs were slick, the iron cold, the smell of oil and sea strong enough to be tasted at the back of the mouth. In the lantern room, the lens looked cleaner than it had the night before. Ellie took a cloth to the glass in slow circles, the way she had been taught by a woman in Portland who said history will let you hold it if you treat it like a cheek. Noah leaned over the mechanism and listened, that old mechanic's prayer of ear to metal, heart to hazard. The belt had settled, the bearing still complained, the generator kept its reluctant bargain. Beyond the glass, the ocean had traded rage for a kind of stubborn endurance, waves folding over rocks with the stubbornness of memory. "You always liked the hour before morning," he said. "You always liked pretending you hated it," she answered. "I liked that you liked it," he said. "I liked anything that made you feel like the world was still an instrument you could tune." "You made it go sharp," she said, and the line would have landed like a knife if not for the way she softened the last word, as if she had caught herself and set the blade down on a towel instead of a table. He nodded once. "I did." They worked without commentary for a while, the kind of small labor that makes a person honest to themselves because there is no room inside the task for pretending. When they finished, they did not step back to admire anything. They just stood, shoulder to shoulder, the beam stretching out toward a horizon they could not yet see. The radio remained dead, which meant the town could not send its opinions into the tower. It did not mean the town had stopped having them. In kitchens along Main Street, voices would be pouring coffee and defrosting bread and calling neighbors to say what storms always gave people permission to say. Noah felt the shape of those conversations without hearing a word, his ribs much too practiced at holding other people's weather. Ellie knew the weight as well. She had worn it years ago like a coat that did not fit and still had to be buttoned to the throat. "Do you ever walk down Front Street in the morning?" she asked, not quite idle. "I go around," he said. "Because of me," she said. "Because of me," he answered. "But the math includes you." She breathed once through her nose, the old anger making a brief appearance not to start a fight, only to remind them both it was still paying rent in her chest. "I had a job offer in Boston when I left," she said. Cloth paused against the glass. "I told myself I did not take it because I was too young, or because the hours were wrong, or because the work was not exactly what I wanted. That was a lie. I did not take it because if I left and did well, I would have to admit the ending here did not kill me, and you would not get to carry that ghost. He turned to her. I would have preferred the truth, he said, and there was no defense in it, only a slow astonishment that she had handed him a piece of pain he had not earned. Me too, she said, and for a moment the room felt like it had windows on all sides, and you could see the coastline of who they were and who they had been without choosing which view to favor. They brought the hand lantern upstairs and set it on the sill where the beam could find it every sweep. Ellie opened her toolkit and slid the cracked lens into her palm again. The fracture was clean, the kind that travels the quickest path from weakness to air. She examined the housing, checked the seating, tested the hinge. Noah watched her work with an attention that did not feel like surveillance, more like that old habit of learning a person by watching them do what they love. You were always going to leave this town, he said, not an accusation. I was always going to take it with me, she said, not an apology. And me, he asked. She did not dodge. Yes, she said, even when I pretended I had left you here to rust. He leaned against the frame and let the wood take his weight. When my father died, he said, the only thing that made sense was work. I could not hold grief in my hands without breaking it or breaking myself. So I took shifts no one wanted and said yes to any repair and walked this tower like it was a language I could translate into something that did not hurt. I thought if I kept this light right, I would make a case to the world that I still deserved to be here. You always deserved to be here, she said. He looked at her the way people look at water when they realize thirst has been a habit, not a crisis. Say it again, he said. You always deserved to be here, she said, and the words did not fix his life, but they fixed the argument inside him that kept demanding he prove his right to stand where he was already standing. The generator hiccuped like a child swallowing a sob, and both of them moved at once without deciding who would do what. Ellie took the stairs 2 at a time. The sound of her boots a heartbeat Noah had known by other names. He swung into the shed, hands already reaching for tools. The wind had shifted back toward Spite. Rain found seams and exploited them. He braced his forearm against the panel and coaxed the engine through another start sequence. The belt screamed. The engine caught. He eased the throttle and hands-off tested the vibration with an instinct he could not have explained to anyone who did not know how a machine talks when it is telling you the truth. Satisfied, he stood very still until his breathing returned to normal, then turned to find Ellie at the door, hair damp, eyes clear, body framed by the storm like the outline of a question that had finally decided to be asked. What? He said, voice lower than the engine. I hate that I wanted to haul you back by the shirt when you went out here, she said. I hate it because I do not want to want anything from you, and I hate it because the want sounded like the old one. What did it say? He asked. Come back, she said. That is all it ever said. Come back. He took a step toward her, and the door pressed them together with the next gust. It felt like the storm had hands and had learned how to make people admit things by moving the air. He put his shoulder against the wood and turned the latch, then reached past her to close it. When he did, his arm touched her collarbone, and she did not flinch. Back in the lower room, the night thickened again, even though morning should have been closer. Storms act like authorities. They ignore clocks when it suits them. Ellie set the hand lantern between them and began the careful replacement of the lens. She heated the sealant over a candle, waited, pressed, waited again, made the small adjustments that distinguish repair from wish. Noah sat across from her with the ledger open, pen in hand, not writing, just staring at the last line where both their names still lived. The paper had absorbed the room's humidity, the ink more generous at the edges, the page a little softer than it had been the day they first signed it. I thought about coming back the night after you left, he said, voice even. But there is a kind of pride that does not look like pride when you are drowning. It looks like discipline. It looks like protection. It looks like how you keep a room from being on fire. I mistook all three. She looked up. I would have opened the door, she said. I know that now, he said. Back then all I knew was the door I had closed. She set the lantern down, both hands flat on the table for a breath. We do not get to be 17 again, she said. I would not want it if we did. We get to decide if the versions of us who hurt each other get to run the room forever. I am tired of letting ghosts run the room. Me too, he said. His hand moved over the ledger as if testing whether the paper would accept one more truth. He drew the pen down and wrote the date. Then he left his name off the line. "Together," he said, sliding the book toward her. "If we sign together. If not, we leave it open." She stared at the page. Then she left it blank. "Open," she said. "Let the room breathe." Something changed outside, a shift in the sound that came through the walls. The rain's pitch lowered. The wind found a new key. Noah crossed to the narrow window and tilted his head, listening the way he listened to engines and oceans. Then the tower shivered, not from gust, but from a distant thump that rolled through stone and spine. Ellie stood beside him and felt it too. "What is that?" she asked. He waited. There it was again. Not thunder, not rockfall. A dull, rhythmic sound that could only be one thing when the harbor was closed and the coast under order. A boat, moving where it should not be, hull hitting trough and crest with the stubbornness of someone who believed rules were for other nights. "Idiots," he said, already moving. "If they do not see the rocks, they will cut their boat open from bow to stern." She grabbed her coat. "We cannot reach harbor patrol," she said. "The line's dead." "Then we reach them," he said. And neither of them said the rest out loud, which was that if the lighthouse failed them now, the guilt would take a room in both their chests and refuse to pay rent. They climbed as if the stairs had learned their legs and were pulling them up. In the lantern room, the beam swung its long arm, but not far enough, not clean enough, the fog and rain turning light into a bruise against the air. Ellie pulled the storm shutters to widen the spread. Noah adjusted the pitch on the reflector to focus what strength they had. The boat thumped again, closer now, the shape still invisible, the sound too loud to be small. Ellie cranked the lantern drive with a steadiness that made the mechanism behave. Noah took the hand lantern they had just repaired and stepped onto the narrow balcony where rain tried to push him back inside. He braced, lifted the light high and signaled into the dark with the slow, insistent rhythm that men at sea learn to read even when they wish they did not have to. There, far out, a smear of movement, a wrong-angled silhouette trying to decide between courage and stupidity. He signaled again, sweeping the beam across the rocks where the breakers turned white and cruel. The boat hesitated. He could feel hesitation at a distance the way he could feel his name said behind a door. He signaled a third time, then a fourth, and finally the shape corrected, engine complaining as the bows swung toward deeper water. He kept signaling until the smear resolved into a fade, the fade into absence, the absence into the kind of silence that feels like relief has learned to stand. He came back inside, rain stringing from his hair onto the floor. Ellie took the hand lantern and set it down carefully on the sill, then pressed a towel into his hands. He did not move to take it, and for a second the two of them stood there with the space between the offer and the acceptance, holding everything they had not yet said. "Thank you," she said. "For the lens," he said. "For the signal," she added. "For not falling," she finished, and the last one pulled a breath from him that was not quite a laugh and not quite a sob, something older than either. The hour bent toward that almost morning when the world feels like it could tip either way and the body chooses. Ellie's hands stung from the metal, the kind of sting that makes a person aware of being alive down to the fingertip. Noah hung his wet shirt on the back of a chair and stood by the window bare-shouldered, the damp turning his skin into a map of heat and cold. The beam passed, painting a pale track over his chest, and then was gone, and it felt like watching time lay itself down and stand up again. "Do you believe in signs?" she asked, not mystical, more like a person taking inventory. "I believe in work," he said. "I believe in consequences. I believe in doing the next right thing until the room changes shape." "And the rest?" she asked. "I believe in you," he said, and she did not look away out of pride. She let the sentence stand in the open, where sentences go to either make fools of people or make them brave. The generator settled into a truer rhythm. The storm backed off one small degree. The light grew a fraction cleaner. Inside those shifts, a new quiet took a seat. A quiet that wasn't avoidance. A quiet that comes when two people have said enough to make the air trustworthy again. Ellie drew her chair to the table and pulled the ledger closer. She turned back through pages until she found the first summer they had kept watch together, the entries full of small triumphs and smaller disasters. She read the lines out loud, not with nostalgia, but with the steady tone of a person reading truth back to itself to make sure the vowels still fit. Noah listened with his eyes half closed, the way a person listens to a favorite song that they pretend they have forgotten. July 4th, she read. Lens cleaned with vinegar and salt. Fireworks illegal on the bluffs. Noah says he can taste the smoke on the wind anyway. I could, he said. Cherry and dare. August 2nd, she read. Fog as thick as milk. I said the ocean had moved closer to us. He said water has a will and a wicked sense of humor. He smiled, small, private. We were ridiculous, he said again. We were precise, she said. Ridiculous is what people call you when you love something on purpose. She closed the book and laid her palm on the cover. I am not going to pretend the letter undoes what you did, she said. But I am not going to pretend your reasons were small or mean. They were scared, he said. And fear makes people do math that turns love into something it was never supposed to be. Then we do better math, she said. A clatter at the base of the tower pulled both their heads around. Not inside. Outside. Not metal failing. Stone struck. Noah moved first. Ellie right behind him. They took the stairs fast, light following them in long blades as the beam swung. In the entry room, the door shuddered once, then again. He lifted the latch an inch and peered into the crack. A lobster trap had blown in from somewhere, banging against the steps. Rope wrapped around the railing like a sentence that had tried to tie itself to the wrong noun. He stepped out, cut it free, and dragged it inside before it could become a missile aimed at a window. Ellie bent to help, hands on the wet wood, and for a second they were so close their breaths braided without asking permission. Someone will miss this come morning, she said. We will put it back, he answered. We will, she said. And the pronoun did more work than either could measure in that instant. They set the trap in the corner to dry. He shut the door against the last stubborn threads of rain. When he turned, she was looking at him with an expression that had not been available the night before. It was not forgiveness. It was not surrender. It was a readiness to use the same language again and mean different things. The hour leaned forward. The storm kept its hand on the town but loosened its grip. Somewhere inside that change, the radio picked up a breath of life and coughed out a scrape of sound. Not a voice, not yet. A click, a hiss. Then a line clearing its throat at the far end of a long wire. Noah crossed to it and tested the dial. Ellie stood beside him, shoulder to shoulder, the letter behind them, the ledger open, the hand lantern catching the beam and giving it back, the key on the table, heavy and patient. If the town is listening, she said, they will hear whatever we let them. He nodded. Then we decide what truth sounds like when we say it together. The radio clicked again, as if the storm itself had decided to give them a channel wide enough for a choice. Ellie reached over and turned the volume to a level that would carry without forcing. Her hand brushed his. He did not move away. The tower did not creak. The night did not resist. The room felt steady, not because the weather had become kind, but because they had. Outside, the Atlantic flexed its old muscle and then rested. Inside, two people who had built a lighthouse once with their hands and once with their hearts prepared to step into a morning that would not arrive with mercy, but might arrive with meaning if they met it the way they had met this night. The beam swept the room one last time and paused on their faces, an illusion made by angle and chance, as if the light itself were nodding. Then it moved on, out toward the rocks, toward the boat that had corrected course, toward the town that would wake hungry for story. They stood together at the radio, and when the line finally opened, they were ready to speak. Dawn refused to arrive, and the tower felt like a held breath. The radio line opened with a dry click and a wash of static that sounded like gravel rolled in a metal pan. Noah adjusted the volume until the hiss thinned, and a voice pushed through, frayed at the edges but alive enough to be recognized. May from Harbor Patrol, tired and unsentimental, the kind of woman who measured storms by how they changed the faces of people who thought they were stronger than weather. Her message came in pieces, the tower catching every other word like a net that had lost a knot. Coastal closure extended. One boat unaccounted. Report of a second vessel ignoring warnings south of the breakwater. Hold your position. Maintain the light. Do not attempt water rescue. Repeat, do not attempt water rescue. The line snapped to silence, then crept back, as if her voice had to fight its way up the wires. They moved without argument. Ellie checked the lens, listening with her fingers for the tiny grit that steals brightness from glass. Noah leaned into the mechanism and felt the belt's warning whip through the housing like a heartbeat out of rhythm, the kind of stutter that kills machines if you pretend it is just nerves. He had already pushed the generator harder than it wanted to be pushed, One more surge and the system could decide it had given enough. Downstairs, the ledger lay open to the newest date, the line where they had refused to write anything until both their names could live there honestly. The letter rested on top, the fold pressed clean again by her careful hands. The key waited on the table, heavy as a promise that could open a door or keep it bolted, depending on who used it. The beam swept the room, crossed their faces, and went out into rain that had learned a lower key. Beyond the glass, the ocean rolled the way it does when a storm changes from anger to endurance, more stubborn than violent, more dangerous in its sameness. Then a sound reached them that did not belong to rain or wind or waves, a horn too close to the rocks. Not panic, not skill. The blow of someone who could not decide which they had more of, pride or fear. Ellie and Noah locked eyes. She did not give him permission. She did not forbid him. They both knew the rules and the reasons behind them. They both knew what Gull Harbor whispered when anyone broke those rules and came back from it alive. He grabbed the hand lantern they had repaired together and the coil of rope by the door. She took the storm whistle, slung the signal flag across her shoulder, and felt the old part of her life slot into place with the kind of certainty that arrives when your body recognizes a language it once spoke without accent. They reached the balcony. Rain came in hard lines, less like weather and more like the sky explaining consequences. Noah braced one foot on the grate, one foot against the door jamb, and swung the lantern high, signaling into the seam between fog and dark. Ellie blew the whistle in long, low blasts that bounced off the rocks and came back speaking the same word over and over. Danger. The beam turned, caught a smear of metal, and for a second the shape of a boat stepped out of the weather and then back in again, a silhouette with no business being where it was. Noah signaled, steady, precise. The boat hesitated, reversed, corrected, and the next swell lifted it up enough that the operator could see what the lighthouse was trying to say. The horn blew again, softer now, like apology. The shape angled away, back toward deeper water, and vanished into the same grey that had made it foolish. Noah lowered the lantern. For a heartbeat, the balcony was only rain and the sound of two people who had remembered how to work as one body. He turned. Ellie reached for the latch, and the wind took that choice as an invitation. A gust shouldered the door wide with a violence that ripped it from her grip. The door slammed against the stop with a sound like bone, rebounded, and came back at her face with the rude speed of something that did not intend to miss a second time. Noah moved without thinking, catching the edge with his palm and the frame with his shoulder. Pain ran electric through his hand. He did not let go. Ellie drove her weight into the wood and shoved on 3, not 1, because that was how they had always done it when something heavier than both of them had to be moved. The door clapped shut. The latch slid home with a stubborn click that sounded, in that second, like mercy. Inside the lantern room, the light made it sweep again and faltered on the return, the belt screeching a thin, sick sound. Noah dropped to the mechanism and killed the drive before the belt could snap and lash the housing. The room lost motion. The silence that followed had teeth. Ellie looked at him. He looked at the dead machine, and then at the sea, and then at her. He spoke without flinching from the cost. "I can do this fast," he said, "or I can do this gentle. Fast gives us light if I do not make a mistake. Gentle gives us light if the storm does not change its mind. Then we will not rush and we will not hesitate," she said. "You do the work, I keep us safe." He nodded once, and they set about the kind of repair that turns two people into proof that trust is a skill. Ellie braced the housing open and kept a hand on the panel to feel the engine's mood travel through the metal. Noah loosened the idler arm and eased the belt off with fingers that remembered the tool angles from a boyhood spent learning his father's stubborn machines. He threaded the spare, thin, tired, a last resort that had already served one winter too many, and seated it with a patience that came from having broken more than he had fixed when he was young and deciding he no longer wanted to be that man. "Hold," he said, and she did. "Now," he said, and the belt took tension without argument. He breathed once and put his palm flat on the frame the way a person does when they want the iron to feel the intention in their skin. He brought the drive back a fraction. The belt grabbed, the wheel turned. The lens began to move, slow, then right, then true. The room exhaled with them. The radio coughed. A voice, May again, made it up the wire long enough to drop a packet of words that would not be caught later if they missed them now. Report from the inlet. 2 teenagers missing from a dinghy. Last seen near Breaker Point. Stay watch. If you see flare or hear call, do not leave the tower. Repeat, do not leave the tower. Wait for harbor patrol. The line went thin and died. Ellie's fingers tightened on the panel edge. 2 kids, the age they had been when they believed everything bright could be kept if you only held hard enough. She looked out at the smear where sea and sky had learned each other's names. She did not speak. Noah did. His voice was low enough that the light had to pass twice to catch it. "The letter," he said. "You read what I did. You did not read why." "I read enough of the why to know it was not small," she said. "But I did not read names. You left them out." "I thought leaving them out was protection," he said. "It was the last act of a boy who thought silence is clean. It is not. It is just easy to fold." She stood very still. "Tell me the names now," she said. "Do not edit. Do not try to save me. Do not narrate yourself as noble." He swallowed and did not ask her to be gentle. "My father," he said first, because the dead deserve their place, and Russell Jameson at the fish buyer, and Tom Carr from the council, and May's predecessor at Harbor Patrol when May was still working nights, and my own hands, because no matter who else bent the rules, I turned the wrench. He told her what the letter had sketched and what it had concealed, how Russell paid by weight and winked at numbers when the winter went long and the boats came back thin, how Tom needed the town's donation for a pet project and did not care where the money came from as long as the ledgers looked clean, how Noah's father, trying to outrun medical bills that came with the kind of price tags that teach a family new arithmetic, had signed catch logs that did not match what sat in the hold, how the harbor inspector, the one who retired out of town before anyone could pin anything on his jacket, had learned to use the threat of a real charge to demand favors and silence, how Noah had taken the night shift, the maintenance, the missing pages, the conversations nobody wanted to repeat because he was young and strong and loved this place so much that he could almost convince himself that bending what was right would keep the tower upright. "And me," Ellie said when he paused, because she knew a story leaves out the person it hurts the most when you want to believe damage can be localized. "Where did I stand in this map you drew?" "Anywhere but here," he said. That was the instruction, from Tom, from the inspector, from anyone who knew we were us. They said your scholarship would go. Your mother's job at the clinic would be reviewed for conflict because she volunteered records on weekends. Your apprenticeship would be flagged. They said the word scandal the way some men say please. "And you believed them," she said. "I believe in the length of a small town's memory," he said. "And I believed I could take the bruise and keep you clean." I was wrong about almost every part of that sentence. The tower swayed. The lens turned. Rain tightened and loosened. Ellie looked at the pages of her life he had tried to write for her and decided whether to set the book down or turn one more line. "You let them use me to move you," she said. "You let them use what we were to make you choose for both of us." "Yes," he said. "You do not get to call that love," she said. "You get to call that fear wearing its best shirt." He did not argue. "I am out of shirts," he said. "I am telling you the truth with no cloth left on it." She let the sentence sit. The radio gave a hiccup, and then a thin, far-off signal whistle made it through the wall like a mosquito might. Not their whistle, not inside the tower. Outside where the fog keeps secrets. Ellie moved to the window. The sound came again, so faint she felt it against her teeth more than she heard it with her ears. 3 long, 1 short, the local call kids use when they do not know the official ones. "They are south," she said. "In the slot." Noah's mouth went flat. The slot was a narrow vein of water that cut between 2 outcrops the length of a pickup truck apart. It turned blue days into puzzle work and storm nights into traps. May said stay put, he said, because obedience matters when chaos tries to prove rules are made of paper. May loves rules because rules save most people most nights, Ellie said. But rules are not boats, those kids are. Signal them hard. He signaled. Hard. The hand lantern burned a true line even with the crack repaired and the wind chewing at the flame. Ellie took the flag and spoke the old semaphore into the wet dark until her shoulders ached. The whistle answered once more, and then not at all. The beam swung and revealed a flash of something too bright to be natural. Not a boat. A flare, starved and dirty, clawing its way upward and failing. It sketched a weak arc and died. Noah looked at the ladder that ran down the stone to the ledge and to the skiff line that belonged to the lighthouse. He looked at Ellie. The rules said, do not. His chest said move. If you go down there alone, she said, reading him the way she could read weather. "You might make it to the line, and you might not. If you do, you might get a boat into that slot, and you might not. If you get there and you are alone, you will try to be two people for those kids because that is what you do when you think the world owes you debt. I am not letting you pay that with your breath. If we move as the tower." He did not waste time pretending to talk her out of herself. He tied the rope around his waist and another around hers, double-checking the knots with hands that were suddenly steady enough to do surgery. They took the stairs. The tower breathed with them, iron answering flesh, stone answering muscle. At the base, the door shoved back at their shoulders, wet wood, stubborn wind. They set themselves to it. The storm did not yield. They made it yield, a fraction at a time, the way you ask anything that believes it is stronger than you to please step aside. Outside, the ledge was a throat of rock slicked with moss and insult. The rope bit their waists and told the truth about gravity. They made the descent with the kind of attention that has no room for philosophy. At the lowest rung, the surge reached for their boots. Spray hit Ellie's face with the taste of iron. She knew that taste from nosebleeds and hard work. Noah leaned his weight into the cleat and hauled the skiff line up hand over hand until the little boat's nose showed a shape. He hauled more. The skiff lifted and slapped the stone like it had its own opinion about being used in weather like this. Another whistle. Closer. Wrong side of the slot. Ellie wrapped her rope over the upper cleat and pulled herself into the skiff first. Noah followed with a decision that made the day he left her feel like something he would not be doing again. They timed the surge, let the ocean do half the lifting, and shoved off on the out-breath of a wave. The boat pivoted, then found the line of water that would carry them around the worst of the teeth. Noah rowed with the old deep stroke that comes from a childhood of making distance turn into safety. Ellie kept the lantern aloft and the whistle between her teeth, long two-note calls that said hold, answer, hold. The slot presented its mouth. They took it. They found the teenagers not because the boys made noise, they had stopped doing that, but because the coastline tells on you when you do not know how to promise it respect. The little dinghy sat wrong, one side low, one boy white-lipped and stubbornly bailing with a cracked plastic jug, the other holding the stub of a dead flare, as if a prayer might relight it. Ellie gave them her voice first, because voice is bridge. "You are not in trouble," she said loudly enough to serve as law. "You are coming with us now. Hands to the rope. Eyes on me." The bailing boy froze, and then did exactly as told, because he had reached the limit of the story he wanted to be in. The flare boy stared as if seeing the lighthouse up close had turned all his small-town myths into one human fact. This is how people keep each other alive. Noah slewed the skiff in, let the swell do the part of the job muscle cannot, and grabbed the dinghy's gunwale. Ellie leaned out with the lantern and put its repaired light in the boys' faces, not to blind, but to claim, as if light could say, "Your life is our business." They transferred the first kid across the small space between almost and still. The second kid hesitated, because that is what boys do when pride tries to bargain with death. Ellie cut that hesitance in half with a tone that had made grown men straighten. "Now," she said. He moved. They shoved the found dinghy away so it would not tangle, timed the return out on a swell, and let the ocean pay them back with a push. The row back took the kind of forever that is measured in muscle fibers and will. Noah's arms shook in a way that came from honesty about limits, not failure. Ellie kept the boys talking, one question after another, about the exact nothing that matters when someone has to decide whether to stay conscious. Names, grades, a teacher who always smelled like oranges, a sister who draws boats in the margins of her notebooks. Rain ran down their faces and made the boys look like they had only been crying from weather. The slot's mouth widened, and then was behind them, and the ledge came up like a decision already made. They hit the cleat. They tied off. They put the boys' hands on the ladder and told them where to put their feet, as if feet could be coached into calm. Inside the base room, the boys shook like animals too young to know how to hide it. Ellie wrapped them in blankets and set them on the floor, where the lighthouse's dry had learned to be generous. Noah radioed the harbor again, and left the button open long enough that anyone with a conscience could hear breathing and understand its value. May's voice broke through long enough to say, "Hold position, help en route, stay with them, good work, do not go back out." The line cut, but the praise felt like a knot tied at the right length. The boys dozed hard and ugly, the kind of sleep that survivors learn on the first night of their new life. Ellie checked their fingers and lips, their pulse and pupils, said the simple sentences that make a body come back to itself. Noah stood in the doorway between rooms and watched the stairwell long enough that the tower itself looked back at him. Then he turned to Ellie with the kind of decision on his face that cannot be postponed. "Tom does not tell this town what we are anymore," he said, voice quiet and full. "Russell does not buy anything at a price that includes our lives. If there is a fine, I will pay it. If there is a day in court, I will stand there. If there is work to repair, I will do the hours on my knees. I am done mistaking protection for love." Ellie listened. The boys snored softly. Rain stitched the windows with smaller hands. The letter on the ledger kept its fold but not its power. She could not reach forgiveness in one step. She did not pretend to. She reached the thing before it that means forgiveness has a road to walk on. "Then we tell the town," she said. "We do not wait for rumors to do the job. We do not let other people keep the pen. We tell it from this room with these boys beside us and this storm still outside, so nobody forgets what truth is for." Noah nodded. He picked up the key from the table and held it out, not to return it, not to give it away, but to place it where it belonged, in both their hands at once. She wrapped her fingers over his. The metal warmed. The tower steadied. The beam went out through glass and found rock and water, and morning trying like a stubborn heart to find its way onto the map. Inside, they stood with the key between them and the boys at their feet, and the ledger open and the repaired lantern true, and understood that the point without return is not a cliff. It is a door that refuses to swing shut once you have walked through it together. The boys slept hard on the floor with their blanket corners curled in their fists, and the lighthouse breathed around them like a patient whose pulse had finally steadied. The storm had lowered its voice to a steady hiss that threaded the windows and folded itself under the door. Ellie stood by the table where the ledger lay open, and the letter sat in its careful fold, and the key waited with the weight of a small truth that had decided to become a large one. Noah watched her from the doorway between rooms, the kind of distance that is not defense but respect, a measure of space that says I am here, and I will not crowd what you have to decide. The beam swept slow, touched her wrist, moved on, returned, and each pass felt less like surveillance and more like blessing. She did not turn. She spoke to the objects first, because objects have a way of holding a room honest. "I am not interested in a story that makes you noble," she said. "I want an accurate one. I want the parts you wished I would never see. I want the detail that makes this tower go quiet when you say it out loud." He did not mistake the request for permission to perform regret. He stepped forward, far enough that the two of them shared the same light. He told her the numbers he had helped round and the signatures he had watched become instruments, the hands he had shaken that felt like deals being made with time rather than with men. He told her the night the inspector leaned against the hood of his truck and used the word scandal and said her mother's name as if it were a coin to be flipped. He told her how a boy with love in his mouth and fear at the base of his skull can be leveraged into choices that look like sacrifice and are only controlled with a cleaner shirt on. He did not try to purify any of it with a phrase about good intentions. He did not ask the room to applaud the part of him that had meant well. She listened with her shoulders back and her arms loose at her sides, not closed, not open, ready to receive and ready to refuse. When he finished, the beam crossed them and went out over black water. The silence that followed was not empty. It had a shape. It asked something from both of them. "You did not just leave me," she said. "You managed me. You decided what truth my life could hold. You called it protection because that word is easier to forgive than control." He nodded once. "I did," he said. "I am not asking you to forgive me with the old math. I am asking to stand in the new one with you while it hurts." "You are not asking," she said. "You are offering, that matters." She reached for the letter and unfolded it, and read 2 lines aloud, not because she needed to hear them again, but because he needed to hear them in her voice. The sentences were smaller than the night now. The room did not tilt under them. She refolded the paper and slid it under the ledger as if the past had earned a place that was real and also done. Then she put both hands on the table and leaned into the wood, as if drawing strength up through the grain. "When I left this town," she said, "I told myself that survival would fix everything. I thought that if I learned a new city and paid my rent on time and kept my work precise enough to make old glass sing, the ache would get tired and go somewhere else. It did not. It learned my schedule. It waited for me in the clean apartments and in the museums after hours, and in the grocery line when I put lemons and salt in the basket, because that is what you use to make a lens honest. I lived. I thrived. I still could not set this down. I am not thanking you for that. I am telling you the damage was not poetic. It was administrative. It filled the blank space on forms where I should have written the word peace. He closed his eyes once, a slow flinch that did not try to hide. Say what you need me to do, he said. Not yet, she said. I will tell you what I need us to do, and it begins with you understanding that you do not lead this part. He absorbed it without defense, and something in the air relaxed that had been tight since they were 17, and louder than they were wise. She took the key and set it in the middle of the table. This is not a symbol tonight, she said. It is a tool. It opens. It locks. It is heavy on purpose. We choose what it does from now on, and we choose in daylight. He nodded, but the habit of action still lived in his hands, and she saw it. She stepped closer until the beam lit both their faces at the same time and stayed there for the length of a breath. You do not get to fix me, she said. You can fix the bearing and the belt and the generator and the cracked lens. You cannot fix me. You can repair trust by telling the truth, by staying when it is unbearable, by not rescuing me from feeling what I am allowed to feel. If you try to smooth this out with usefulness, you will break it again. I hear you, he said. And if I reach for a wrench, I will tell you whether it is for a machine or for my fear. Good, she said, and the word did not bless him so much as it blessed the future they had just agreed to keep honest. A small sound from the floor, the scrape of a blanket, as one of the boys turned in sleep. Ellie glanced down, checked the slackness of his mouth, the color back in his lips, the heat rising off his skin, and then returned to Noah with a steadiness that proved she could hold two concerns at once without letting either fall. Tell me what it cost you, she said, softer. Not to let him off a hook, but to pull something true into the center. Not the money, the life. After you left me with the silence, what did it cost? He did not dress the answer in bravado. I learned to live in rooms that did not have your name in them, he said. I learned to pretend that made me strong. I slept like a thief up at every noise. I did not go to weddings that would have forced me to be kind to futures I did not own. I stood in the lantern room on bright days and made myself believe that keeping a beam clean could substitute for letting anything touch me that I could not control. I got good at duty. I got worse at love. The town stopped expecting me to be anything but loyal to things that rust. I obliged them. On good nights I felt worthy. On bad nights, I felt like a man who had mistaken endurance for a personality. And right now, she asked, what do you feel like? Like a man who will walk into a morning he does not control with you, he said, and the sentence did not tremble. The beam swept and the storm murmured, and the boys slept, and the generator kept its part of the bargain. Ellie looked at him long enough for the old ache to say what it needed and sit down. Then she spoke the kind of sentence that changes furniture in a life. I believe you, she said. I do not absolve you. I choose you anyway. I choose you with the truth in the room, not with a blanket over it. He did not move toward her. He let the words touch his face like weather does when it chooses to be kind without promising it will stay that way. His eyes went bright and then steady. He reached for the table and put his palm on the wood near the key, but not on it, a vow made without the performance of a handover. Ellie closed the small space between them because someone had to, and she was no longer interested in letting fear choose who got to be brave. She touched his jaw, slow as if the skin there had learned to brace against apology and might need to unlearn it. He did not lean in. He did not try to turn a fragile moment into a victory. He waited. She lifted her mouth and put it to his and kept it there. Not a rescue, not a promise to forget, but a living thing in a tower that had carried too many ghosts. When she stepped back, the room did not sway. He exhaled like a man who had been keeping a candle alive in a cave and had finally been allowed to open the door. Now we say everything, she said. Before the town listens, we say it here, where the walls have already heard worse. He nodded and gave her the hardest part to lead. She asked questions that did not flatter either of them. Who knew what? Who had to be told first? What money would have to be accounted for? Which man would try to reframe the truth, and how they would take that frame apart without becoming what they hated? He gave answers plain enough that the air did not squirm. They drew a list in their mouths rather than on paper, because there are plans that must live in bodies before they can survive the world that wants to dilute them. She went further. If the town turns on me for choosing you, I will not forgive you for being surprised, she said, You will stand beside me and not in front of me when they come. I will, he said. If something in you wants to confess for applause, you will not do it here, she said. You will do it on your own porch where it costs and then come back to work. I will, he said. If the boys wake frightened, your voice will be the first they hear because you broke this town's trust before you set your hands to fixing it, she said. Their bodies need to learn your voice is not a danger. It will be, he said, meaning safe, meaning steady. If I tell you I am empty and need quiet, she said, you will not mistake that for punishment and go looking for storms to prove you still deserve to be alive. I will not, he said. Good, she said again, and the word laid a clean line across the floor between them that felt like the first step of something worth walking. He reached for the ledger and turned it so the newest date caught the light. The line waited. The pen waited. He did not write. He placed the pen on the binding and pushed the book back to the middle of the table, close to the letter and the key and the repaired lantern, whose fracture had become an honest seam. When the boys wake, he said, we speak. Then we tell May. Then we tell the town. Not with a performance, with a statement. We will not let them strip this of meaning by letting it be gossip again. We will speak, she said, and the agreement did not try to be a cure. It chose to be a start. The smallest boy stirred, eyes fluttering, breath hitching once the way it does when a body tries to remember why it is allowed to rest. Ellie knelt, a hand on his shoulder, the kind of touch that anchors without demanding. Noah crouched beside her, and for the first time since they were children in the lantern room, pretending they could fix the world with two sets of good hands and one beam of reliable light, they spoke together in the same tone. You are safe, she said. You are inside, he said. We have you, she said. We will not let go, he said. The boy quieted. Sleep braided itself back through him. The other boy snored once like a punctuation mark and rolled to the warm side of the blanket. Noah and Ellie stood, backs close enough to share heat without stealing comfort. The storm put one last line against the window, a soft drum that felt almost like thanks. Ellie returned to the table and set the letter beside the key. This stays, she said, not as a trophy, as a record. If someone asks what changed us, we will not say a storm. We will say the truth. Noah reached and took the key and closed his hand around it, and then opened his hand again and set it where both of them could reach it, without asking. This opens in daylight, he said. It does, she said. They did not rush morning. They let the night finish what it had come to finish. They stood inside the lighthouse that had held their worst and their best and had refused to collapse under either, and they learned how to be quiet without being afraid of what the quiet might hand them. When the radio finally cleared its throat in the next room with the first test of a signal that wanted to be heard, they did not flinch as if caught. They looked at each other, and in that look was a complete sentence with no wasted words. Together, she said. Together, he answered. The beam swung, slow and unhurried, and went out into the grey where morning was already practicing its shapes. Inside, two people who had run out of lies decided to spend the rest of their breath telling the truth in a town that could not decide whether it wanted to punish them for it or thank them. They did not wait for permission. They stood with the boys, with the ledger open, with the letter folded and present, with the key at the center of the table, and let the night pull away like a tide that had done its work. Morning did not arrive in color. It came in shades of pewter, the kind of daybreak that looks like the world is still thinking about whether it wants to exist. The storm had moved off just far enough to leave the sky heavy and undecided, and the ocean below the cliff rolled like something exhausted from being furious all night. Inside the tower, the air smelled of wet rope, warm blankets, cooling metal, and the kind of silence that follows a decision instead of a disaster. The boys woke slowly, the way survivors do when the body insists on proof that the danger has actually passed. Ellie knelt beside them, checked their pulses, cracked a smile at the one who opened his eyes, and immediately tried to act like nothing hurt. Noah set water to boil over the camping stove and filled 2 tin mugs like the act of pouring could steady his own hands. The generator kept time under the floor, a softened thrum, and the lens continued its slow rotation, steady as a heartbeat that had decided it wanted to live. You saved us, the older boy said, voice gravel-thin. No, Ellie answered. You stayed alive. We just met you halfway. But you came out there, the younger said, awe blunt in his voice. Yes, Noah said, Because this town takes care of its people, even when they forget how to take care of each other. The boys looked at each other in the way kids do when they're trying to decide whether they're supposed to be grateful or embarrassed. Ellie squeezed the older one's shoulder. You don't owe us anything except the truth when people ask how you made it back. The boy nodded. We'll tell it right. Yes, she said. You will. When they had eaten and warmed and the color had returned to their faces, Noah helped them lace their boots while Ellie radioed Harbor Patrol. May answered on the first crackle, her voice the closest thing Gull Harbor had to a courthouse. Breaker point, confirmed 2 rescued, conscious and stable. Confirmed, Ellie said. And the light is holding? For now, Noah replied. We've got 1 belt left, and it's praying for retirement. May exhaled the kind of breath only people who've seen too much ocean ever earn the right to release. Patrol boats are en route, 20 minutes out. And just so you know, half the town is already awake and talking. Of course they are, Ellie said. Noah didn't look surprised. What are they saying? May hesitated. Depends who's holding the coffee pot. That bad? Ellie asked. Some are calling you heroes, May said. Others are calling you trouble. A few are calling you exactly what you've always been. The 2 kids who never learned how to walk away clean. Ellie's jaw tightened. Let them talk. Oh, they will, May said. Question is, who talks first on record? Them or you? Noah glanced at Ellie. Ellie didn't blink. Us, she said. We talk first. We talk straight, and we do it today. May went quiet a beat. Then she said, That's the right answer. I'll patch the line when the boats arrive. The radio clicked off. The conversation did not. Noah leaned against the desk, arms folded, eyes fixed on the ledger that still waited for signatures and truth in equal measure. Once the patrol boat docks, we don't get this version of quiet again. I know, Ellie said. They'll want details, the rescue, the storm, the boat. He paused, and eventually they'll ask how the 2 of us were the ones in the tower, together, after everything. Yes, she agreed. And they won't ask because they care. They'll ask because the truth scares them more than the storm did. He almost smiled. You going to tell them anyway? Yes, she said. Every sharp edge, every soft one. I'm done living like the truth is a curse you have to whisper. He let that land. And us? She didn't step closer. She didn't step back. There is an us, she said. But it's not the old one. That version burned. This one stands because we didn't pretend the fire was candlelight. He breathed slow. The kind of breath men take when they understand they are being given something real, not returned, not owed, offered. You're not walking away this time, he asked. I'm not walking in circles anymore, she said. The boys drifted back to sleep, exhaustion tugging them under again, and for the first time since the night began, the lighthouse didn't feel haunted. It felt inhabited, chosen, claimed. Noah stepped to the table. Ellie joined him. The key sat between them like a question that finally had 2 answers. We face them together, he said. We speak before they name us, she said. And if they don't like what they hear, she met his eyes. Then they'll have to learn to live with the sound of 2 people not asking permission to be whole. The ocean hit the rocks in a long, rolling sigh, as if even the Atlantic had decided it was tired of old stories. The first patrol horn echoed from beyond the fog. The truth was coming ashore. And this time they were ready. The horn from the patrol boat broke the last thread of night, a long, low sound that made the lighthouse feel less like an island and more like a witness. Ellie helped the boys into their jackets while Noah stepped outside to signal the crew. The air was cold, but no longer cruel. The sea had adopted the sort of tired rhythm that comes after a fight no one truly won. The boys walked between them, steady enough to move on their own but still close enough to prove they didn't want to. Harbor Patrol reached the ledge with practiced urgency and soft hands. They didn't ask questions first. They checked vitals, confirmed names, wrapped blankets tighter. Only after the youngest boy nodded through a cup of water did May step onto the stone and meet Ellie's eyes. You good? She asked, voice all gravel and loyalty. Good enough to finish, Ellie said. May nodded once and turned to Noah. Town's already on fire, she said, not blaming, just reporting. I figured, he answered. Some folks say you 2 saved lives. Others say the lighthouse should have been manned by anyone but you. Both things can be true, Noah said. Yeah, May replied. But only one of them gets repeated unless you speak louder than the gossip. Ellie stepped forward, not waiting for Noah to answer. We're not running this time, she said. Not from the storm, not from the town, not from the truth. May's mouth curled into something that wasn't a smile but was close enough to count. Good, because they're all waiting. Word traveled faster than rain ever had in Gull Harbor. By the time patrol pulled away with the boys, the docks were already lined with bodies in wool coats and rubber boots, arms crossed, coffee steaming, questions coiled behind every brow. Some pressed forward to wave, some lifted phones toward the lighthouse, others just stared like the building itself had betrayed the rules by letting two people walk out of it still breathing. Noah and Ellie stood at the top of the dock ramp, shoulder to shoulder, the wind pushing hair into their eyes, the town looking like a jury too tired for ceremony. Noah spoke first, not loud, not dramatic, but clear. The boys are alive because they made it through the night and because we did our job. That's the part everyone can agree on. Silence, heavy, waiting. The rest, he continued, is the part you're not going to like. But it's the truth, and I'm done letting other people tell it for me. Somewhere in the crowd a voice said, "Truth about what?" Another, sharper, "About why you left her." A third, "About the logs, the quotas, your father?" That last one stung the way accurate things do. Ellie didn't move away from him. Noah didn't look at the ground. "I helped sign catch records that weren't honest," he said. "I did it because I was young, scared, and trying to save things I didn't know how to carry. No one else forged my name. No one forced my hand. I'm the one who did it." A gasp rolled the docks like wind moving through reeds. He didn't flinch. "I kept quiet because I thought silence would protect people I loved. I was wrong. Silence just makes the wrong things rot slower." He stepped aside. Ellie stepped forward. "And I'm not here to defend what he did," she said. "I'm here because the damage didn't just happen to him. It happened to me, to us, to the truth. And nobody gets to talk about that in half sentences anymore." A murmur, a shifting, a few eyes softened, others hardened. She held the line anyway. "You don't have to like us," she said. "You don't have to forgive us. But you don't get to rewrite our story just because it's easier to repeat the old one." Then she did something no one expected. She reached back, took Noah's hand, and kept talking. "And if anyone here thinks this town gets better by choosing what version of the truth is most convenient, then you didn't learn a thing from this storm." The wind shifted. Something in the crowd broke. Not support, not judgment. Something quieter. Acknowledgement. May raised her hand from the pier rail. "That's it," she muttered. "That's the line they'll remember." The crowd didn't cheer. Gull Harbor wasn't built for applause. But people moved. Some toward them, some away, some just breathing a little different, like the town had been holding a plank so long it forgot how to bend. An older man, the kind who carries years in his eyebrows, stepped forward. "You kept the light," he said to Noah. "That still counts." A teenage girl touched Ellie's sleeve. "I want to learn restoration," she said. "If you're teaching." Ellie nodded once, throat tight. Only one person turned their back and walked away without a word. That was fine too. Some storms leave debris, others leave instructions. They returned to the lighthouse in silence, not avoidance, just the kind of quiet that follows battle and doesn't need translation. The tower felt different now. No longer a confessional, no longer a cage, a place that had heard the worst and watched the repair begin. Inside, the ledger still lay open. Ellie picked up the pen. She didn't look at Noah. She wrote her full name, not the girl who left, not the woman who hid, the one who stayed. Then she handed him the pen. Noah hesitated, not from doubt, but from understanding that ink means you can't undo a thing by pretending it happened differently. He signed. Not the boy who ran, not the man who hid, the version that had walked through a storm and didn't lie about what it cost. They closed the ledger, not the story, just the page. In the lantern room, Ellie checked the restored lens one last time. The fracture line was still there, faint but real. A seam, not a scar. Proof that something can break, be repaired, and still do the job it was made for. Noah stood beside her, coat unbuttoned, salt drying on his sleeves. "You know," he said quietly, "that light is going to shine long after people stop talking about us." She smiled. Not wide, not soft, just honest. "Good," she said. "Maybe that means we finally learned how not to be the story. And what are we instead?" She thought, then answered, "The part that didn't sink." He nodded. "I can live with that." She reached for the switch. The beam swept the sea. The storm was gone. The truth stayed, and the lighthouse, finally, was at peace. Months later, the ocean forgot the storm, but the town did not forget the night the lighthouse stayed lit. The boys grew into the kind of young men who carried truth the way others carry lucky coins, lightly, but never far from reach. And sometimes, when the evening fog curled against the harbor, they pointed toward Breaker Point and said, "That's where we learned the difference between being rescued and being found." Ellie stayed. Noah stayed, not because the past held them, but because the future finally had room to breathe. The ledger was no longer a list of witnesses, but a record of hands that chose the work. And in the upstairs room, the lens turned with the quiet confidence of something that had been broken and repaired without shame, scattering its beam across the sea like a promise that didn't need to be spoken aloud anymore. Second chances, the town learned, don't return you to who you were, only to who you might have been if you had told the truth sooner. And that's the story of the night the storm brought everything full circle, where love didn't return as a fairy tale, but as a decision repeated in daylight, with both hands visible and no pages torn out of the ledger. If you listened close enough, you noticed that nothing in this story was perfect, but everything in it was earned. The repair, the confession, the courage to stand in front of a town that keeps receipts longer than memories. Some romances are built on fireworks. Others are built on small, consistent acts of staying, and the strongest kind, the rare kind, is built on the truth spoken without the expectation of applause. Ellie didn't forgive Noah because he was right. Noah didn't love Ellie because she forgot. They chose each other again because they finally understood that love without truth is just a performance waiting to collapse under its own lighting. And when the lighthouse lit the sea that final morning, it didn't shine for them. It shone because they learned how to fix what mattered without pretending it had never cracked. If this story stayed with you, let it remind you of something simple. Second chances don't knock. They wait, quietly, patiently, until someone decides not to run this time. Thank you for staying until the end. If this story meant something to you, strengthen that light. Hit like, subscribe, and comment the city and state you're watching from. It helps more than you think. And somewhere out there, someone who needs a story about repair will find it because you did. Until the next story, keep the light on.